February 1999. I don't have any personal memories of this time. I'm still working at Frame Art Galleries as a picture framer. So let's jump right into the books. The first book that I read in February of 1999 is Netherworld by Richard Lee Byers. This is a World of Darkness vampire novel. And basically, let me check my notes. There's a guy named Zane. He's in love with a young woman named Rose. She's murdered, and he enlists the help of the vampires to find out what happened to her. As I said, this is a World of Darkness book. The standout from the books at this time to me were the covers, which were monochrome, I think would be the word, aside from the title and the artist's name. Like this particular book, I believe, was green. So there was like a dark green border, and then a lighter green background, and then a picture of the character in a dark green. Very striking covers. Not the best in the World of Darkness stuff, but a whole bunch of these books had the same style of cover. But again, World of Darkness vampires, you've got the different clans of the kindred with all the politics involved, and this, what happened to Rose is the thrust of the story. Book 2 is actually a book 1. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Gatekeeper's Trilogy, Book 1, Out of the Madhouse, by Christopher Golden and Nancy Holder. So in this book, just all sorts of craziness going on in Sunnydale, monsters coming out of portals, and so Buffy ends up leaving Sunnydale and going to Boston, where the gatekeeper lives. So it's a guy, he's got this mansion with more rooms than should be able to fit into it, and each room is a gateway to another dimension where different monsters are, and the monsters are escaping. And so Buffy and the Scooby Gang are trying to stop the monsters and figure out what's wrong, why the monsters are escaping. And the gatekeeper's son has been kidnapped, and the son is the only one that can take over as the gatekeeper. When the gatekeeper dies, just crazy monster mayhem in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer world. And book 1 of a trilogy. So we're not going to have a conclusion. I followed that up with The Vengeance Trail of Josie Wales by Forrest Carter. This is the sequel to Gone to Texas, which is the first Josie Wales book, the one that was made into the movie The Outlaw Josie Wales, starring Clint Eastwood. This takes place, I think, a number of years after the events of that story, and some Mexican bad guys kill some of Josie Wales' friends and drag another one back down to Mexico to kill him. And so Josie and some of his compatriots are going to head on down, and there's Native Americans and some banditos, all sort of converging. Lots of violence. Very violent Western. If you're a fan of the Josie Wales movie, I would recommend both books, Gone to Texas and The Vengeance Trail of Josie Wales. I actually had an omnibus that had both together, but very good, entertaining Westerns, in my opinion. But not like the traditional type of what. This isn't Louis L'Amour or Zane Grey. Excuse me. Next up, we have The Outfit by Richard Stark. It's a Parker novel. It is the third Parker novel. So, in the first, Parker is betrayed by his wife and partners in crime, and he's left for dead. But he survives, comes back for some vengeance against the Outfit, the mob, basically. The second book is The Man with the Getaway Face. Parker has to get plastic surgery because the Outfit's not happy with him. they're coming after him. And so he gets plastic surgery to try to get back to a normal life of being a criminal. So now in the outfit, mob is still mad at him. They send a hitman after him. He survives and decides to take the fight back to the outfit and just starts ripping them off, heist after heist after heist. Basically saying, hey, you don't mess with Parker. Great, great crime fiction. The Parker books are fantastic. Someday, I'm going to reread this series. I have them all. I will be rereading them. Then we have Sunglasses After Dark by Nancy A. Collins. Nancy. I said Nancy funny. I became aware of Ms. Collins when she was writing Swamp Thing. I'm sort of gesturing because I have the omnibus of her complete run of Swamp Thing. Found out she was an author. Started reading her books. Sunglasses After Dark is the first Sonia Blue novel. Sonia Blue is a living vampire. Essentially, this woman, something Thorne, Danielle Thorne, I don't remember, was attacked, left for dead to become a vampire, but she was actually not resurrected, but saved by medical professionals. She didn't actually die. And so she's in this sort of flux state, human and vampire. Essentially, the vampiric demon is in her body, fighting her for control. But she becomes a monster hunter. She's looking for the vampire that changed her. And meanwhile, there's this televangelist, I believe it is, who's sort of preying on her parents. And so Sonia's going after her. But, there's more to it. There's monsters and demons in this book. Great, great stuff. Considered one of the first urban fantasy novels, I believe. Part of a series. The book Dead Detective Society that is coming out eventually. I think it's set for December. It was on Kickstarter. I backed it. James Aquilone. You can check out my interview with him. We talk about it there, but that's going to have a Sonia Blue, like the first new Sonia Blue story in quite a while. But Sunglasses After Dark, Nancy A. Collins, good stuff. Then we have A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is the first Sherlock Holmes. So we're introduced to all of the characters that we'll come to know and love. Dr. Watson, our narrator, tells us about he's looking for lodgings and ends up living with Sherlock Holmes. That's how they meet. Sherlock Holmes needs a roommate. Watson needs a place to stay. And so they start living together. And Watson accompanies Holmes. He's to a crime scene, a murder, and basically chronicles Holmes' adventures. And so we're introduced, as I said, to the characters, to the quirks of Sherlock Holmes, to the Baker Street irregulars. Is that what they're called? The kids that help Holmes. Just a classic mystery. I'm a big fan of Sherlock Holmes. I have a particular edition that I want, which is why I don't have a book to show you, because there are only two in the set. There's a complete set of Sherlock Holmes in a certain edition, and I don't have A Study in Scarlet in that edition, and another one. I can't remember if it's The Hound of the Baskervilles or a different one that I don't have, but I'm searching, always searching for that particular edition of A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Then we have, I mentioned last week that I was using a different pen that's very light ink. It's black ink, but it's very light. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Xander Years, Volume 1 by Keith R.A. DiCandido. And this is a novelization of 3 episodes of Buffy featuring Xander. And the 3 episodes are, let's see if I can do this off the top of my head, Teacher's Pet, Inca Mummy Girl, and Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. So teacher's pet. There's a substitute biology teacher who takes an interest in Xander. Um, and shenanigans ensue. I don't want to give it away, just in case anybody hasn't seen the episodes yet. Incan Mummy Girl. There's an Incan display at the local museum. There's a Incan princess who is mummified, who comes back and starts a romance with Xander. And shenanigans ensue, as they do. In Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, Xander and Cordelia have broken up, and Xander somehow, I forget how, there's a spell cast, like a love spell, because he wants Cordelia to be in love with him again. But what happens is it affects every female in Sunnydale except for Cordelia. And so it's one of those types of things where Xander's basically on the run from absolutely homicidally obsessed women, girls as well. I mean, he's a high school student, so it's high school kids and adult women. And shenanigans ensue. I'm a fan of the show. I enjoy these episodes well enough. They're at least the first two, I believe, are in the first season. So I know Teacher's Pet is. Incan Mummy Girl might be. Yeah, I think that's second season. Because I remember that Willow is dressed. There's a party, like this sort of countries of the world party. You dress in the costume, the clothing of different peoples of the world. And Willow is in a parka. She's an Inuit, supposed to be dressed as an Inuit. And Oz just keeps getting glimpses of her and trying to figure out who she is, if I remember that correctly. So that might be second season, and then Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered maybe third season. I don't remember exactly when Cordelia and Xander got together. Could be second season, could be third season. Either way, fun stuff. All right. Excuse me. Next, we have The Eagle Has Landed by Jack Higgins, a book I have read more than once. It was made into a movie with Donald Sutherland. It's the first book in the Liam Devlin series. I only looked this up to get names because I think this is a great book. And basically, it is about a Nazi plan to kidnap or kill Winston Churchill. He's supposed to be visiting this small town. And so Liam Devlin he's an IRA guy. Excuse me. And he's like setting things up. And then these Nazi soldiers are disguised as Polish paratroopers, I believe. They come to the town under this guise and are just waiting for Churchill to show up. But some things happen that potentially thwart their plans. Don't want to give anything away, as usual. But this is... it's a great book. It has an interesting bookend where the author is visiting this small town, modern day, and sees all these bullet holes in these tombstones, and he asks the parish priest, why are these bullet holes in these tombstones? And then the parish priest tells us the story, which is The Eagle Has Landed. I recall the first time I read this book, it doesn't make Nazis sympathetic. And I should say, instead of Nazi soldiers disguised as Polish paratroopers, I should say German soldiers. Because what it does is make them human. We see that I know I'm not going to get into all the stuff. There's the saying, if you are at a dinner table with a Nazi and you don't leave, you're at a dinner table with two Nazis. So I'm not saying, hey, these German soldiers are great. They are part of the Nazi regime, but they are humanized in that it shows they're not the fanatics that Nazis are. They're soldiers doing what their superiors tell them, not in the Nazi concentration camp way. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? And again, I'm not saying they're good guys. They're obviously the bad guys, but they are a little more human than we might normally see bad guy German soldiers slash Nazis portrayed. Anyway, love this book. It's fantastic. And I followed that up with The Eagle Has Flown by Jack Higgins. So the head of the German soldiers that disguise themselves as paratroopers is, I have to check the name. See, this is why I had to look it up. Kurt Steiner. So he's captured. Spoilers, he's captured at the end of The Eagle Has Landed. And The Eagle Has Flown is basically Liam Devlin now has been assigned to break Kurt Steiner out of jail. And there's lots of other stuff going on. It is a thriller, but that's essentially what it is. It's a decent book, but it's not. I don't think it's nearly as good as The Eagle Has Landed, but it is worth a read, and it's part of the Liam Devlin series. All right, I followed that up with Blood Relations by Doug Murray. This is another World of Darkness vampire story, and it has that same monochrome type of cover that was cool. In this case, I think it's orange. I could have those two flipped, but I think the first one was green. This one's orange. But anyway, in this one, there's a club in New York, I believe it is, where sort of wannabe vampires go and end up becoming the prey of actual vampires. And there's there's a female vampire and a male vampire that meet at this club and fall in love, but maybe them meeting wasn't happenstance. Vampire politics. What is going on? Again, a decent World of Darkness vampire novel with a cool cover. All right. Empire of the Ants by Bernard Werber. However you say his name. I did look this one up, and I saw some comparisons to Watership Down, which I can see. So basically, there's some humans. There's this family. They move into an apartment complex or move into a place. They're told not to go in the basement, but the dog disappears. They end up going in the basement. Something's going on. Meanwhile, the crux of the book is ant society. So we're following the story of these ants. And it's while it is anthropomorphic, for lack of a better term, it's barely that. And it's very, as far as I know, very accurate, for the most part, in the portrayal of ant behavior and ant society. But it does, there's a female ant that has a mission. There's something that's killing the ants, and this female ant has to figure it out. But it has to deal with other insects and birds and what we know are cars, but the ants don't know that they're cars. Somehow, this is the part I don't remember. Somehow, this ant adventure ties into the human thing. I think that's where the book lost me. I thought the ant stuff was interesting. The human stuff didn't interest me. And I do not remember how it came together at all. If I were to rate it today on Goodreads, it might get a 3. I think probably the ant stuff would make it a 3. I liked it, but certainly not more than that. But if you're interested in ant stuff in sort of a excuse me, again, anthropomorphic setting, Empire of the Ants. Then, all right, this one, such tiny handwriting. Book 1 of the Millennium Quartet Symphony by Charles Grant. And, all right, I looked this up, and now I don't remember what it said. I know there's a car. I know there's mysterious forces. It's Charles Grant, a very atmospheric writer, I believe. Let's see what happens if I do this. All right. Now, hopefully you're still seeing me. Oh, yeah, here we go. So this is what it says on Amazon. When a preacher who has lost his faith suddenly discovers that he possesses the ability to heal and perform miracles, he becomes a reluctant participant in a battle against evil as he sets out to save a teenage girl and stop the occupants, who may be demons, of a mysterious car. All right, hopefully you saw me the whole time I was reading that. I don't normally change from the camera, so I can see what I'm doing. But I had to look that up. I could not, I don't know why, I couldn't remember the whole thing with the preacher who's lost his faith and his miraculous abilities. I don't know if we're going to see more of this series. I assume I read more of it. And I'm going to be honest with you. I try to be honest at all times. I have a bunch of Charles Grant books. I forgot to look and see if I have this one. But looking at the cover on Amazon, I don't think it's in my stack of Charles Grant books. But as I said, very atmospheric author. That's what I like about him, at least a lot of the stuff I've read. I actually just got a new not a new hardback, new to me hardback. Christopher Rufty, great author, sells old, some newer, but a lot of old, like paperbacks from hell kind of books. And there's some new stuff. Again, there's some new stuff there too. Decent prices. The stuff I've gotten has been in decent condition. But anyway, one of them was a hardback of a Charles Grant book. That's neither here nor there. I read one more book in February of 1999. That was Challengers of the Unknown by Ron Goulart. Again, don't know about pronouncing these names. This is basically a novel based on the comic book, The Challengers of the Unknown. Were sort of DC's answer to the Fantastic Four. I feel like they were created by Jack Kirby. But it was a group, I believe it was just a quintet, 3 men and a lady, of adventurers. They didn't have superpowers like the Fantastic Four, but they did go on these crazy, crazy adventures. And so this was just a novel about one of their adventures. I don't remember the actual adventure they go on, and I couldn't find like a plot synopsis anywhere online. Ron Goulart, I've read a bunch of his stuff. He wrote the series of Groucho Marx mysteries. He was the ghostwriter for William Shatner's Tech War. Did a lot of stuff, and I might actually have something of his over there. I don't recall, but I feel like I bought something of his from Half Price Books. And I used to have this Challenge of the Unknown, which does have a great cover. But if you like crazy comics from like the 70s, could be fun for you to read. Anyway, that is it. That is what I read in February of 1999. I probably shouldn't have closed this because, once again, I did not bother to think of a question beforehand. So I want to look at this list. Hey, there's 2000. I'm on the wrong page. Oh, looks like I changed pens as well. All right, let me take a look at this and see if there's anything that I care to ask about. All right, how about this? This is going to be a weird one. So, in the vein of Empire of the Ants and Watership Down, what species of animal would you be interested in reading a book about where or in which they are the animal scientifically, as close to scientifically, but also, they talk to each other and they do things. So I'm not talking like really anthropomorphized animals like in the Lion King, but again, like more like Watership Down, not the Redwall series where they're, mice have swords and armor and stuff, but where the whatever the animal is, there's a dinosaur book, I believe, that's like this, where it's very much, not that we know everything about dinosaur behavior, but it's very much dinosaurs being dinosaurs, but there's a story there. Um, so what animal, if this question even makes sense, what animal would interest you in reading about in this way? Excuse me. Um, for me, the first thing that came to my mind was sharks, because sharks are cool. So should that be my answer? Should I just say sharks? Maybe something a little more interesting. I don't know why I'm like focused on water. Octopi seems like it could be interesting. They seem to have personality. Um, Land-based animals. Let me think about land-based. I could say spiders, but that's very similar to ants. I mean, not in a technical way. Um, what land-based? I don't want to go with like cats or dogs. I'm trying to think of something a little more. How about kangaroos? That could be interesting. I don't know anything about kangaroos. So I don't know. That's my not very good answer. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. That's all I've got for this week. So until next week, read more books.